You know what's absolutely insane? There are towns in America where people are moving because they literally might run out of water. Not in some distant future, like potentially within a decade or two. Towns built in deserts that were never supposed to have millions of people but somehow do. And now the water that made that possible is disappearing. I'm talking about places where Lake Mead has dropped 150 feet, where you can see the bathtub of where the water used to be, where entire marinas are now on dry land, where towns are implementing mandatory water restrictions, and people are getting fined for watering their lawns, because there's just not enough water to go around. This is the Western water crisis, and it's not theoretical. It's happening right now. Reservoirs are at historic lows. Aquifers are being pumped faster than they refill, and some towns are genuinely facing the question of what happens when the water runs out. So today we're going through 14 Western towns where water shortages are making people leave, because someone needs to talk about the fact that we build cities in deserts, and the bill is coming due. Let's get into it. Here's why this is happening and why it's only getting worse. The American West was settled on a lie. The lie was that there was enough water. Explorers saw the Colorado River and thought this can support millions of people. They saw aquifers and thought they were infinite. They assumed rain and snowpack would stay constant forever. All of those assumptions were wrong. The Colorado River provides water for 40 million people. It's over-allocated, meaning more water rights exist than there is actual water. The river is literally shared beyond its capacity. Add climate change and you get less snowpack. Less snowpack means less river flow. Less river flow means reservoirs don't refill. And when reservoirs don't refill, towns run out of water. Groundwater isn't better. Aquifers are being pumped at rates 8 to 10 times faster than they naturally refill. That's not sustainable. That's mining water. And when the aquifer runs dry, that's it. You're done. The towns on this list are experiencing this crisis in real time. Some are dependent on Colorado River water that's disappearing. Others are pumping groundwater that's running out. All of them are facing restrictions, rising costs, and in some cases, population decline as people decide living somewhere without reliable water isn't worth it. This isn't about hating the West. This is about acknowledging that building massive cities in deserts has consequences. And those consequences are arriving. Number 14, Flagstaff, Arizona. Starting with the mountain town that thought altitude would save them from water problems. Flagstaff relies on groundwater and some surface water. The aquifers are being depleted. The city has implemented conservation measures. Water bills have increased significantly as the city tries to fund infrastructure to find new sources. Flagstaff is beautiful. Mountains, 4 seasons, northern Arizona charm. It's also at elevation in a drought-prone region, and water is becoming a genuine concern. The downside is Flagstaff is growing. More people means more water demand. But water supply isn't growing. Eventually something has to give. Some people are already choosing to live elsewhere. Flagstaff is where ponderosa pines can't hide water scarcity. Number 13, Santa Fe, New Mexico, the art town where water costs are becoming as high as the art prices. Santa Fe gets water from the Rio Grande and local groundwater. Both are stressed. The Rio Grande is over-allocated. Groundwater is being depleted. Water restrictions are common. Bills have increased substantially. Santa Fe has culture and beauty. It also has 7,000-foot elevation in a high desert. Water has always been precious. Now it's becoming genuinely scarce. The problem is Santa Fe attracts wealthy people who use water for landscaping and pools. That conflicts with water conservation. And when push comes to shove, some residents are deciding Santa Fe isn't worth the water stress. Santa Fe is where southwestern drought met southwestern lifestyle. Number 12, Reno, Nevada, the biggest little city facing a big water problem. Reno relies on the Truckee River and groundwater. Lake Tahoe feeds the Truckee, but drought has reduced flows. Groundwater is being used to supplement. Water restrictions have been implemented. Population growth is straining supply. Reno is trying to diversify away from just gambling. Tech companies, remote workers. Growth. But growth requires water, and water is limited. The downside is Reno is high desert. It gets minimal rain. Without the Truckee and groundwater, the city wouldn't exist. and both sources are stressed. Some people are recognizing that and leaving. Reno is where the biggest little water supply met the biggest problem. Number 11. Fresno, California, the Central Valley agricultural hub where the land is literally sinking from water depletion. Fresno and the surrounding Central Valley rely almost entirely on groundwater and surface water from rivers and aqueducts. Groundwater is being pumped so aggressively the land is sinking, like actually subsiding, over a foot per year in some areas. The Central Valley is America's food bowl, but it's being watered by unsustainable groundwater pumping. Wells are running dry, farmers are fallowing fields, and towns are watching their water tables drop. The problem is this is agriculture. It uses 80% of California water. When ag struggles, towns struggle. People are leaving for places where water isn't a daily crisis. Fresno is where feeding America came at the cost of drowning in water debt. Number 10. Albuquerque, New Mexico, the New Mexico City learning that the Rio Grande isn't so grande anymore. Albuquerque relies on the Rio Grande in groundwater. The Rio Grande has been reduced to a trickle in dry years. Groundwater has been declining. The city has made progress on conservation, but growth continues. Albuquerque is a real city with actual economy. It's also in a high desert with limited water, and climate change is making the Rio Grande less reliable every year. The downside is Albuquerque can't easily replace its water sources. If the Rio Grande keeps declining and groundwater keeps dropping, the city faces genuine limits on growth. Some residents see that writing on the wall. Albuquerque is where the Rio Grande strategy became the Rio Grande problem. Number 9. El Paso, Texas, the Texas city where the Rio Grande is more mud than water. El Paso sits on the Rio Grande, which is completely tapped out by the time it reaches there. The city relies heavily on groundwater. That groundwater is being depleted. Water levels in the aquifer are dropping. Conservation is mandatory. El Paso is a border city with binational water issues. Mexico also draws from the same sources. When water is scarce, international treaties don't create more water. The problem is El Paso is growing. Military, border activity, trade. But water isn't growing. The city is managing for now, but the trajectory is concerning. Some people are already leaving for places with more secure water. El Paso is where international borders couldn't stop water from disappearing. Number 8. St. George, Utah, the Utah town where retired people discover retirement requires water. St. George is one of the fastest growing areas in America. It's also in the middle of a desert. Water comes from the Virgin River and groundwater. Both are maxed out. Lake Mead supplies some, but Lake Mead is historically low. St. George attracts retirees who want warm desert living. Golf courses, pools, landscaping, all of which require water that doesn't exist in sufficient quantities. The downside is St. George's growth model is based on assumptions about water availability that are no longer true. Restrictions are tightening, costs are rising, and some people are realizing desert retirement without water is just Death Valley with golf courses. St. George is where golf greens are becoming drought browns. Number 7. Tucson, Arizona, the Arizona city that's actually trying to solve its water problem, but might be too late. Tucson relies on Colorado River water, Central Arizona project deliveries, and groundwater. CAP allocations are being cut. Groundwater has been declining. The city has good conservation programs, but growth continues. Tucson is a real city with culture and university. It's also in the Sonoran Desert. Without external water, Tucson would be a small town, and that external water is disappearing. The problem is Tucson can't manufacture water. Conservation helps, but when your sources are declining and population is growing, math catches up. Some residents are choosing to leave before it does. Tucson is where 6 million people in a desert started looking unsustainable. Number 6. Las Vegas, Nevada, the city built on gambling that's gambling with water. Vegas gets 90% of its water from Lake Mead. Lake Mead is down about 150 feet from full. Vegas has been incredibly aggressive about conservation, but Lake Mead keeps dropping because the Colorado River doesn't have enough water. Vegas is a mirage in the desert that might become an actual mirage. The city has backup plans and intakes at lower levels. But if Lake Mead drops below dead pool, those intakes don't work. The downside is Vegas is entirely dependent on a water source that's failing. The city can conserve, but it can't create water. Eventually, if the Colorado River doesn't recover, Vegas faces existential questions. Some people aren't waiting to find out. Vegas is where the house always wins except against drought. Number 5. Farmington. New Mexico, the Four Corners area city where oil and gas can't pump water from empty aquifers. Farmington and surrounding areas rely on the San Juan River and groundwater. The San Juan is part of the Colorado River system, which is overallocated. Groundwater is being depleted by agriculture and energy extraction. The Four Corners area has oil, gas, and coal. But energy doesn't run without water, and water is becoming scarce. When water goes, energy jobs go. When jobs go, people go. The downside is Farmington's economy is tied to industries that use significant water. As water becomes scarce, those industries struggle. The town is caught between economic need and environmental reality. Farmington is where energy extraction met water depletion. Number 4. Phoenix, Arizona. The city that refused to believe a desert could run out of water. Phoenix gets water from the Colorado River via Central Arizona Project, Salt and Verde rivers, and groundwater. CAP allocations are being cut. The rivers are stressed. Groundwater is being depleted as a backup. Phoenix has 6 million people in the Sonoran Desert. It was built on the assumption that water would always be available. That assumption is being tested hard. The problem is Phoenix keeps growing. New housing, new people, new water demand. But water supply is contracting. The state has tried to limit new development in some areas, but growth continues. Phoenix is where swimming pools in the desert met the desert fighting back. Number 3. Coalinga and Central Valley agricultural towns, California, the small towns where wells run dry and water trucks are the only option. Coalinga and similar Central Valley towns rely entirely on groundwater. That groundwater is being pumped faster than rain refills it. Wells are going dry. Some residents have no tap water. They rely on bottled water or trucks delivering water. These are working-class agricultural communities. When your well runs dry, you can't just drill deeper forever. Eventually, you're importing water by truck, which is expensive and unsustainable. The downside is these towns were built on agriculture that required unsustainable groundwater use. Now the bill is due. People who can afford to leave are leaving. Those who can't are stuck hauling water. Coalinga is where the American breadbasket became the American Dust Bowl 2.0. Number 2. Lake Havasu City, Arizona, the town literally named after a disappearing lake. Lake Havasu City exists because of Lake Havasu, which exists because of the Colorado River. Lake Havasu is down significantly. The town's entire identity and economy is tied to a lake that's shrinking. Lake Havasu City is snowbird and recreation destination, boating, fishing, lake life, except the lake is smaller every year. Marinas are being relocated. Boat launches don't reach water. The problem is you can't have Lake Havasu City without Lake Havasu. And Lake Havasu requires Colorado River water that's being allocated elsewhere. The town is watching its reason for existence literally dry up. Lake Havasu City is where the town name became ironic. Number 1. Agriculture-dependent areas using Ogallala Aquifer at number 1. The multiple western states pumping the Ogallala dry. Towns in parts of Texas, New Mexico, Kansas, Colorado, and other states rely on the Ogallala Aquifer. That aquifer is being pumped 8 to 10 times faster than it refills. It's not coming back in our lifetimes. These are agricultural communities, cattle, crops, all requiring water from an aquifer that's running out. When the aquifer goes dry, agriculture ends. When agriculture ends, towns die. The math is brutal and simple. You can't pump water faster than it refills forever. Eventually you run out. These communities are running out. Wells that used to hit water at 50 feet now need 300 feet. Some can't find water at all. The downside is there's no backup plan. When the Ogallala runs dry in an area, that's it. You either import water at crushing cost or you leave. Entire towns will become economically unviable. The Ogallala area is where the breadbasket became borrowed time. So what does all this mean? First, the Western water crisis is real and accelerating. This isn't theoretical. Towns are running out of water. People are leaving. Second, climate change is making it worse. Less snow, less rain, higher temperatures increasing. Evaporation, the water sources are declining. Third, there are no easy solutions. You can't create more water. Conservation helps, but doesn't solve the fundamental imbalance between supply and demand. Fourth, some towns will become economically unviable. If you can't provide water, people and businesses can't stay. That's reality. And fifth, this will reshape Western geography. Some towns will shrink or disappear. Population will shift to areas with more secure water. The desert cities boom is probably ending. So there you have it. 14 Western towns where water shortages are making people leave. This isn't about hating the West or wanting these towns to fail. This is about acknowledging that building cities in deserts without unlimited water has consequences. For people living in these towns, the choices are hard. Stay and hope water infrastructure catches up. Implement strict conservation and accept lifestyle limits. Or leave for somewhere with more secure water. For the West as a whole, this is existential. The growth model of the last century assumed infinite water. That assumption is broken. The region has to adapt or face decline. Some towns will find solutions. Better conservation, new sources, technology, others won't. They'll shrink or disappear as water becomes too scarce or expensive. The Western water crisis is the defining environmental and economic challenge for the region. And unlike housing costs or job markets, you can't arbitrage water scarcity. You either have it or you don't. So here's my question for you. If you live in a Western town, how secure do you think your water supply is? And would you leave if water restrictions got severe enough? Let me know in the comments, because this is reshaping where Americans can live. And if you found this sobering but necessary, maybe subscribe. We cover housing markets, climate reality, and uncomfortable truths about where we live. Someone has to document the Western water crisis. Might as well be me.